Shelley is Adam's better half.
Do you know, it's only just dawned on me. Sorry, Adam. I had you there waiting, thinking I'll wait for Adam before I let other people in. Sorry.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
And we have Tony, who of course introduced us.
Yeah, he's a bit of a guy, man. He's one of my favorite people. He'll always get me in trouble.
Oh, it's really good to have you here, Adam. So what I usually do is I let people in for a few minutes and then let them congregate, and then we usually start a few minutes after, if that's all right.
No, it's totally cool. I mean, I'm sorry I was like, we've been, and Tony will know this anyway, we've been in negotiation with a few different things we've got going on and projects and whatever, and it's all been absolute madness. And so of late, in fact, Tony's helping us out with this company who wants to basically back some stuff we're doing. And it's taking, you know, a little bit longer and a little bit more hard work than we thought it would be. And so, yeah, so we've been dealing with that as well as working on the budget for the next film. And then we found out that where we were shooting in Georgia is now on the red list. So, so, yeah, we're trying to pivot and work out if we can shoot either possibly in America, but also in the UK. So we're just kind of like weighing the options. And every time we change a location, we have taken into consideration things like tax breaks and the cost of taking crew and cast. So it's all crazy at the moment. So if I've been a bit off the radar, I apologize.
No, not at all. Not at all. I've been equally busy myself, so I know the feeling. But it's amazing that you're here. So that is great. Okay, I'm just going to start letting people in. Hello.
I'm not sure the protocol, so I'll just let you do your thing.
Yeah,
the protocol is that I'm going to mute myself, Tony? Which you know is very rare.
Oh. Hi, Swati. Hey, Jenny. Good to see you.
Hello.
Hi, Randall.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Hi.
Doing well, thanks.
Excellent. Excellent.
Just trying to get organized.
Strange thing about this kind of thing is you never know. Your ex-girlfriend might pop up and you go, oops, that was wrong.
Well, it's good to know that people are still zooming in, even though so many people have gone back out into the world. So,
I think the whole world right now is sort of, that's kind of going on, especially in the entertainment space. People got so bored, I think, at home, they ran out of things to watch, and now everything's kind of booming, and the world's trying to get back to normal. But you know, it's kind of still baby steps, in my opinion. We're trying to get back. We've got trying to get back to New Zealand for a bit, and obviously at the moment they're on proper lockdown, so we can't even get in. So, been an adventure.
It's all a bit mad, isn't it? Still at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's a side to it where you kind of. The weird thing about it is where I live. I'm down on the river in London, and through COVID, you can sort of like, I kind of know my neighbours, but at the end of the garden we've got boats, and we sort of say hi. But during lockdown, we sort of genuinely struck up this sort of friendship, and where we'd invite each other over and stuff and sit in the garden when we were allowed to sit outside and stuff, and you know, people bring cake, and so there was almost a sense of community that you could. I think when you live in London, having neighbours isn't the same as like living in a little country town. You don't really know anyone, and we struck up real friendships with people who, were it not for the madness, there was one lady down there who hadn't been ill, and because of that, she was allowed 2 Ocado deliveries, and she was saying to everyone else around, there's like 5 of these longboats at the bottom. And she was like, if anybody needs anything, I'll put it on my list and I'll drop it off and I'll wear my face bag. And it's been really, so I think through it, some people have discovered a little bit more humanity, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's been so much of that. It has, you know, brought communities together, hasn't it, I think?
I think it had to be, you know, and I think if there is the zombie apocalypse, I think we're going to be more ready for it.
Definitely.
You know? But it's been kind of crazy, and obviously, you know, it's it's hopefully we're coming out of it now with everyone getting vaccinated and stuff, and hopefully the business gets back to normal. It seems to be as well, work-wise, especially in the UK, getting talent for shoots and crew and stuff is, it's not impossible, but with Disney coming back over here and stuff and buying up everybody, it's been an adventure. But we're getting there, I think.
Oh, well, I think if everybody could mute themselves, that would be great, and then we will kick off. So a very, very warm welcome to Adam Ethan Crowe. So hello. Adam, as you all know, is a writer, producer and director, and incredibly talented and award-winning.
More of it's luck than judgment, I think, but there you go. Thank you.
I doubt that very much. You're being very modest. So Adam, can you tell us about your creative journey and how you sort of got into it in the first place?
Okay, I'll tell you a true story. So I basically had one of those moments. I had a real job, lived in the real world, sold insurance and things like that. And then my girlfriend died. And I decided to take a year off and go and travel and discover myself, as a lot of people do. And I got drunk in the Comedy Store in London when I got back about a year and a half later, and saw a guy called Eddie Izzard doing stand-up. And being drunk and emotional, I went up to the bar afterwards with it, to him, and started talking to him. And he was really nice and really friendly. And he made a joke about me being quite loud and obnoxious, and how had I ever considered stand-up. And about 2-3 weeks later, I was getting booed off stage at a pub gig trying to do 5 minutes and being awful. And it kind of went from there. And from there, I got a bit better. And then I wrote a bit for TV and a little bit for radio. And then I kind of got to that point where I saw a director take one of my lines. And in TV, you haven't got much power. Obviously, you're just a hired hand. And he didn't get the joke right. It was wrong. He he got the actor to say it in a way that I would have done. I was like, And I thought, I'm going to try and write a screenplay. Because I've seen a lot of bad movies. I thought I could write a bad movie, and I did. And it was awful, and I never got it anywhere. But that kind of kickstarted it. I sort of gave it a shot. Did like most people do. I went out and bought a copy of Final Draft, a box of pristine notes, those little they go in like a little square box, little note cards. Yeah. And I bought what I thought was like the Mission Impossible screenwriters kit, different colored highlighters, all the things that you think you should have. And and tried to sort of, and I read I've forgotten what the book was, a really famous book on screenwriting that I didn't quite connect with. And then someone told me to read a book called Save the Cat, which is I've been told it was like a remedial version, of how to write a screenplay. But there were certain points in it which made sense. And I read that. And then I read what's it called? Not the Dramatics. There's a really famous book by a Greek philosopher about breaking down stories. And I read that.
The Poetics?
Sorry?
The Poetics?
No,
not Aristotle.
Aristotle's something. It's Aristotle's something. My brain's gone dead. I think it's Aristotle's Poetics or something like. Anyway, I read that and it was really, really good. And then I wrote a screenplay where I wasn't trying to write for the market, because at that time my first screenplay was bad, because I was just like, oh, everyone's making this kind of movie, I'll write one of those. And of course, by the time you've written it and got it to anyone anyway, that time has passed. So the next thing I wrote was a short film called Warhol, which is a little 20-minute short film. And for some reason, people really connected with it. And a producer, a guy called James Vernon, who did Evita and Hacksaw Ridge, saw that short film and asked me to punch up some dialogue in a screenplay I already had. And I met him and we spoke about it, and I took the script he had back home and I read it, and I just thought it was terrible. I thought it was badly written and not good at all. And so a friend of mine said, well, just take the writing job. It's a couple of quid and you just got to punch up some dialogue. And me being a gobby South African Irishman, went back and told him exactly what I thought of the screenplay. And he was like, okay, well, thanks. And then a week later, he hired me to write him an entire screenplay from scratch. And that started from there.
Wow, That's very, very impressive. And Warhol, I mean, I've seen Warhol, and I was just, I was blown away by it.
Thank you.
I thought it was incredible, and it's something that I want to watch again and again and again. Can you tell us how you made it?
Well, again, so what happened was, at the time when I was doing that, I was actually doing stand-up comedy still, did a bit of comedy, and I was earning a living, telling a few jokes. I was never the superstar of comedy, bit of telly, bit of this and that, but nothing special. And I was out in Sydney doing the comedy festival out there, and there was another comedian opposite, a guy called Craig Ricky Shanak. And Craig's really, really funny, but he's also an actor. He's in, if you've ever seen a show called Ray Donovan, which is about the industry and about stuff like that. James Woods is in it, and he's got a bouncer called Tiny, and that is Craig. He's also in a show called Two Broke Girls, and he's in the TV version of Lethal Weapon, things like that. And we became friends. And I said, I've got this great idea, which was inspired by something that actually happened. Can I bore you with the?
Oh, please do. It's not boring us. Okay, what's happened? Sorry, muted by mistake.
Oh, okay. It's all right. Everyone tries to mute me. I'm used to it by now. Don't worry about it. So anyway, what, about 6-7 years ago, there was Kate Middleton was in hospital, and some Australian DJs phoned her up, pretended to be from the Palace, and they got put through to her room. Do you remember this story? It's a true story. And the woman, the nurse that actually put them through, was ousted in the press for basically letting them talk, and she killed herself. She committed suicide. And I was like, wow, okay. And so I thought about writing a story, it's a little short film, about a DJ who has all this power and one day gets it wrong. And so I came up with the idea for Warhol then, and I was talking to Craig over coffee one time, and I just said, well, look, I'd love to do this short film, a couple of days shoot. And he was like, oh, dude, I read the script. I really want to see this. I really want to see this movie. And I was like, well, one day I'll put it together. At the time I was out in Australia doing stand-up, and, you know, I wasn't flush in any way. And he said, what would it take to shoot it? I said, I don't know, probably, top of my head, 3,000 or 4,000. And he went, okay, I'll give it to you. And I went, okay. And so I started putting it together, and he gave me $3,000 to $4,000 anyway. When I got back, this wire came through with, you know, about $2,500. And I went, because I had the idea, but I wasn't sure if I was going to shoot it or be able to shoot it or anything like that. And so when the money turned up, literally, he just sent me some money. I was like, right, you got to do it. And I went, okay. And so over 2 days, we worked out how we could do it with a couple of friends of mine. We were all amateur filmmakers, apart from the DP, Stuart, who was a friend of mine who shot some TV and stuff. And we were watching a film called Captain Phillips. And I thought, what a great movie. And there was a guy in it called Corey Johnson, who's on like 5th on the call sheet. He plays the guy that leads the revolt below deck. And so I was watching it with Shelley, and a friend of mine had said that he had met him and he was a really nice guy. So I reached out to his agent through IMDb, and it turned out he was going to be in the UK shooting Kingsman. Corey was, because he's American. And so I sent him through the script, and the agent said, okay, well, he'll read it. He read it, came back, and the agent said, Corey likes the sides. Can you send the full screenplay so he can see it and tell us what you're willing to offer? And I was going, that's it. That's a 20-minute film. He thought I just sent the section with Corey in it and not the whole movie. And so he was like, and he didn't say it, but you could audibly know that he went, oh no, I've messed up. And because he'd passed it to Corey, and there was this big 6-minute, there's a monologue at the end, which obviously you've seen. And Corey loved the monologue. And so the agent had to go back to Corey and say, it's not an actual feature film, it's a short film. Yeah. And so Corey said, well, look, I'm shooting. If you can do it on these 2 days, I've got off while I'm in shooting Kingsman, I'll do it. And I met him for a coffee, and he came down, and he was so cool and so funny. And the other thing was as well, Craig, who was in LA at the time doing Ray Donovan, actually wanted to come and be on set because he loves London, and he basically flew over literally for 4 days to hang out on set, and him and Corey sort of knew each other anyway, which they didn't know, and we just made our little movie, and then we kind of released it into the world, and the reaction we got to get it was really amazing. It was just a little brain fart that I had, that I put together, and all my friends came together and helped us. No one was really getting paid. We shot it at the Riverside Theatre down, and they wanted for us to use one of their studio spaces. It was like, and this is less of a filmmaking as well. So they wanted, I think it was £2,500 for the 2 days to have the smallest space they had for filming. And we said, we've got 700 quid. And they went, oh, we can't do that. And I said, well, we've got 700 quid. And they said, well, what about 12? I went, we've got 700 quid. They went, what about 1,000? I said, we've got 700 quid. And I went, yeah, all right. And so it's that whole thing where you just ask someone, the same with Corey, you know, reaching out to Corey, I didn't know him. And now we're genuinely mates, you know, but there's a side to it where a lot of the time in everything in life, not just writing, because, you know, a lot of what I'm doing, like I said, it is more luck than judgment. I've met some really great people. I've met some terrible people. I've met con men. I've met people who wear their heart on their sleeve. And, you know, you just sort of give it a go. And we had no idea. We thought we'd do Warhol, put it into a few festivals, maybe pick up a badge or two. And then, of course, we got into Long Beach and Bend, Oregon, and we started getting a little bit of recognition for it. And, you know, and it was just a bit of fun. And that kind of made me think, maybe I can do this, you know. So, yeah, we made that. And now I'm reworking it at the moment to turn it into a feature film. But what I am doing is not the classic thing that a lot of people do, is they'll take a short film that does well and stretch it. What I've done is taken the Warhol section, and that is the jumping off point, and it's where we return to, but I've built other stories around it. So it's kind of like, yeah, rather than him taking the one call, as you know, what we've got are other things going on that will bring in other callers later. And so it culminates back with him in a similar scenario at the end, but it is pretty much just the jumping off point. So, yeah, it seems to have done really well, and it basically got us started. So when people say short films don't make money, they do, because we actually won prize money and stuff as well with it. So, you know, we've been really lucky. But the biggest thing out of that movie, Craig has become a real friend. Corey has become a real friend. I saw him last Friday for a kebab. You know, and a lot of the people that I met then, the people that turn up, that just want to help out or be involved, a lot of them have worked on our last feature film and stuff and got paid for it for a change. So it's, I think it was a good way to start. And feel free to jump in and shut me up at any time, so I do go on.
No, it's just, I mean, I'm completely agreeing with what you say, because it feels like one of those shorts as well that really matters. And I know that one of the awards that it won was for social relevance as well. Yeah. And it kind of feels that when you have that kind of energy around a project as well, something that really matters, that, you know, the right people come in and things just sort of go the right way and do well, because it's something that's meant to be made, I think.
But that was the thing with that, like when we won that was in Girona, and it was like, that's the first one run for 54 years. And when you've got like this established Italian kind of, and it was so cool as well. You know, people that are real film fans, you know, that are there, and you're kind of going, wow, you know, and when you get a little nod like that, that for us was really, really cool, because we were trying to tell, obviously the story itself was really to just sort of, I don't want to sort of give anything away because it is free. It's on my Vimeo if anyone wants to watch it, but it's one of those ones where at the end there is that little sort of the catharsis at the end and his little release at the end kind of thing. I think a lot of us, though, we get, especially social media, because this was really, I think it was 7 years ago I did that, 8 years ago, and social media wasn't as prevalent as it is today. And there was some guy phoning up and talking all big and showing off like people do on Instagram, like I probably do on Instagram as well. And somebody going, okay, he's playing along, he's part of the game. And a lot of the time you don't know who that person really is. You don't really know what trouble they're going through. You know, someone once said to me, they said, wouldn't it be great if your life was as good as we all made it out to be on social media? You know, and it's, you know, it's true. People at the moment seem to feel that provided. I'm guilty of it to an extent, because we've got things that we're doing and we've got people we know in the industry that watch what we're doing. But, you know, I don't know. It was a nice little story, and I'm looking forward to revisiting it. and it did so much for us, for all of us. Because Corey actually said to me as well, because he's just done this film with Jared Leto called Morbius, and he told me a story, but I can't share it. But anyway, and it was like, when he did that, he turned up, and that whole monologue at the end, which I think is 6.5 minutes long, he knew the whole monologue. And I was like, because obviously I'm working with guys who aren't of that level. These are my friends who are actors and people I know. And he knew the whole monologue. And I was like, dude, I gave you the script like a week ago. He goes, and I was like, he goes, buddy, this is what I do. I'm an actor. And I went, okay. And it was just, you know, there were little things like that. And there's a scene in it where the girl who's the tech starts to cry when she's watching him through the window. That actually happened because we we were doing just a rehearsal, and Stuart wisely decided to put his camera on the panel where the two the lawyer and the sound tech are working, and did this nice little pullback that was all him. And he caught Jessica Foster-Q, not Jessica Foster-Q, Jessica, I forgot her last name. But caught her crying, really. And I was like, wow. And that was all Corey. Corey was just in the zone, just doing his bit. And it was amazing. And something I've learned as well in all the projects I've been doing now, when you work with people, I mean, I always say on my set, I want patriots, not mercenaries. And in fact, Tony's a patriot. I've got a story about him. He's a nicer guy than he lets on. And but you meet people in this industry who genuinely are with you for the long haul, and it's not about money. It's about wanting to be involved in something good and something fun. And we try and do the old Nora Ephron set, you know, even on Lair, because she's not only an amazing, obviously, writer, director, and producer, but her sets, you know, they started at 9, they'd be done after like 10, 11 hours. They had a crash on set. Everyone had a good time. There wasn't all the shouting, you know, and you can work with people, you know, who genuinely want to be there. You pay them properly, but it's really inspiring for me. On our last film we just did, we had 4 new actors who had never acted before, and one of them was 9, and her name's Lara Mount. She was incredible. And when she did she came for the audition, and she was standing there, and she was great, and she caught her mum's eye line, and she asked her mum to leave the room. Mum, could you leave this to her eye line? And her mum left. And Katie's her mum. Katie's a friend now as well, but she's lovely. And she left. And Lara was amazing. And you know, it is really cool. Like I said, I worked in insurance. I've worked at McDonald's. I've done all those jobs. Yeah. And I'm now doing something that I really enjoy. I'll probably never do the next Marvel movie, but I don't care, because I work with people I look forward to seeing, and it's kind of cool. And yeah, it all started with Warhol.
Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting. And, you know, I've watched quite a few of your trailers today, and I'm kind of getting the feel for that sort of action thriller type stuff, which is the stuff I personally love as well. But it's also it's got something of Hollywood about it, but it's also really raw and really exciting. And, you know, from the trailers, you're like, God, I really want to see more of this. So I think you've really like nailed it with regards to, you know, what you're actually doing.
Well, that means a lot, because what people don't seem to understand, I'm not allowed to say, but Tony knows, all of our projects we made for so little money that people don't believe it. In fact, our sales agent, she's amazing, and she was a friend of Shelley's. Shelley used to work in the studio system, and she did films like Dallas Buyers Club and things like that. She's like amazing, Elizabeth, and she handles 5 million and above, and ours was way under 1 million. Ours was crazy. And so the fact she took us on, and she was like, well, she thought that she could sell it because the quality looked good. And I watch it like 200 times now, because you sit and watch it for the sound mix, for the VFX, to make sure that the titles, everything, you just watch it. And so I see lots of holes in it now. And it was one of those things where we had a screening recently for the cast and crew in central London. And I got to see it for the first time, because we've been picking up some badges, and it's doing really well on the festival circuit. And I hadn't seen it in a cinema, because obviously we've been in COVID. And we got to actually sit there in a proper cinema and hear it on proper cinema speakers on a big screen. And I fell in love with it all over again, partly because I was surrounded by the crew and the cast that helped make it, but also because I got to see it like I was going to the movies rather than on my TV or in a sound booth or something. And it was really, really exciting. And we're hoping that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to make, like our next film we've got is another scary movie. And then we've got an action film, and then we've got a romantic comedy. And so we're kind of like mixing it up a little bit. Horror has a built-in base. So when I decided I wanted to try directing a feature film, you know, people go and see a Brad Pitt movie, or they go and see a Shonda Rhimes TV show or whatever. With horror, people go and see a horror movie. People go and see a comedy. People go to certain genre flicks. There's already inbuilt fan base. So our thing was, if we can put together a little micro-budget horror film, scary movie, then there will be people who go, oh, look, his head fell off, you know, whatever. And if we have some kind of story, then that'd be fun. And so, I wanted to make a scary, the idea, and hopefully you'll see it, but I wanted to write a villain, a scary guy who you'd want to have a beer with, because he's quite charming. And so we got Corey back for that, which is kind of fun, because he's got this sort of charming back anyway. And so it was kind of fun. It was it's been an adventure, and we're hoping, like, now we've got a couple of other things we're trying to put together as well, and yeah, it's all looking really promising at the moment. So it's good. Yeah,
that's really exciting. And Adam, can you tell us about, you know, because obviously you started off as a writer and then you moved into direction. Did that kind of happen sort of seamlessly, or did you have to sort of do something to get yourself in that place?
So I've written for a lot of people, and I'm really lucky. And it's kind of weird though, because a lot of people, and if you've got writers listening who are out there in the field, they know what I'm talking about. People think as well that the moment you land your first big writing job or something, that all of a sudden the heavens open and you make a fortune and life changes. And I've been lucky because I write for some quite notable people who do films like Batman and James Bond and stuff, so I do all that. But what people don't realize is you get some money up front, and then you get the balance usually on something like principal photography. If it ever gets made. If it never gets made, you never see that money. So you always have to still go, okay, this is what I'm getting. Is this enough to carry me? And if that comes off, I'll be happy, or whatever. And so the writing side was always that. But writing's also very solitary. And I like being around people. I've worked in stand-up clubs. I've worked in bars. I've done all this. And when you're the director, you're surrounded by a team who help you, who carry you at times, who you can rely on. You know, if you're a half-decent director, and I've learned from some of the best, you know, you rely on these people, and they best idea in the room wins every time, regardless of who you are. You know, if you think the whole auteur theory, I've never really bought into, because having done it myself, even on short films and now feature films, no one makes a movie alone. Nobody. And you have people who are held up as these bastions of, you know, guardians of the narrative, the guiding light of feature films, and you're going, mate, without your editor, without your sound guy, without the guy getting the tea, without your runners, right, without the makeup, hair, you've basically got an idea or a chunk of A4. You know, it's like, it really is that whole thing. That's why I say it's about, on a film set, you want patriots, not mercenaries. You want people who want to be there for the right reason. And so for me, I thought, if I write a little horror film, it probably won't be very expensive. I can raise some money through friends and family, or try and do it that way. And I tried for about 3 years, and I met producers. And the sad thing about some producers is the only thing they ever produce is a business card, right? They're just full of crap. And you get people going, oh, I'll option it for £1 because I have to be attached. And if I go out and raise the money, I'm not attached to him, then that means that you could go off with that guy and you should never fall for that. I did my first script, I optioned it for £1 and I got screwed over. And you got it, because if you create something of value, you don't need £1 million for it, but you need someone to go, look, I'm going to produce this. Here's £1,000. Here's something that feels like it's real. And then obviously when we get it going, then I'll get paid and we'll have a contract, and always get a contract, always. And at least there's incentive. If it's £1, I've met producers that will option 50 scripts for £1, and if one of them sticks, it happens, and whatever. And I had some horror stories with this first thing I did. And that's actually how I met Tony. Tony saved me. Tony actually saved me, yeah. Tony, I'm not saying because he's become a friend, but when it comes to the entertainment law, there is no one better. The amount of people I've spoken to in a daily, like other producers, and I'd go, oh, well, I'm working with Tony. Oh, I'm like, have you worked with Tony? He goes, been on the other side of him. Ooh, that's not good. And when I first met Tony, I was being screwed over by a producer, and I couldn't afford really to hire anybody. And I walked Tony through my story. He sat down and looked at his watch, he goes, I've got half an hour, tell me a story. And I told him it. And he went, oh, I hate people like that. And he basically got me out of the deal and crushed him. And I managed to pay him. And that was the start of a beautiful relationship. But there are so dodgy people out there. So I wrote this story that I thought I could get done, back on track, sorry. And eventually I managed to get it to 20th Century Fox. And they read it and they liked it. And I was like, I'm making a studio movie. It was Fox International Pictures. And I had a producer there. And we were putting it all together. And it was all amazing. And I'm going, I am now gone from struggling for 3 years trying to get anybody to give me a couple of $100,000 to make a movie to having a couple of million quid with a studio. That's really great. And of course, we were a week into prep. We were booking camera packages. We were talking to Studio Babelsberg in Germany about set builds. Everything's going ahead. And then Disney bought 20th Century Fox, and Disney don't like horror, so I'm back on the street with better storyboards and no movie. So even when you've been picked up by a major emotion, it means nothing. It really does. And it was literally, I was going, okay, what's next? And my partner, Shelley, and I were like, we can cobble together a few quid. Let's talk to our friends, see if they want to chip in, and we'll make this little movie. And we literally went out, and I think we've got something like over 20 executive producers. I mean, God, even Corey, who's in our movie, put in some money. You know, it's like everybody went, we want to make this little movie. Let's just do it. And we're like, okay. You know, it was amazing. Obviously, Tony was part of the project, as he always is. And we went out and we made this little movie, and it was literally on you know, the smell of an oily rag. And everybody was there. Everybody got paid, not their normal rates. Like everyone got paid, even the runners, but not their normal rates. And we made our little movie, and we made it with one camera in London in like, I think it was 21 days, not knowing where we were going to go. And the moment we finished shooting it, COVID kicked in, and we'd shot everything in 6K. And we wanted everyone to go, well, surely you could do post at home. Well, not with 6K, our machines were exploding. So anyway, we managed to put it together, and then we finished, we left it on the shelf, and at the end of COVID, we sort of finished it, and we went out and we picked up Elizabeth as our sales agent. She took it to Cannes, and we got to Cannes, and we got some really, really good offers from like Studio Canal and 1091, and you know, I didn't even think people did DVD and Blu-ray anymore, but we got like Sony doing Blu-rays and stuff, and you know, and we were just, yeah, and. But I have to say though, and I mean this with my hand on my heart, it's like if you look at the front of my film, it literally says on it, a film by, and normally you'd have Adam Crow, it says a family of filmmakers, right? And I mean that because there are people there who stayed late for no extra pay, who did more than they should have done, who are going to come forward into the next movie and be paid more than they should because they did it for less than they should last time. And we just have become real friends. I mean, genuine mates. Like, they come to London and stay with us when they're in town. One of our friends, Jojo, is now doing she's doing the new Aquaman movie, and she lives up in Birmingham, so she's coming down and staying with us while she's working in London and stuff, you know. And you know, it's, and the thing was, before she actually she was basically she did some FX and stuff on short films, and we gave her first HOD job ever working on our last movie, and she was awesome. And from that, she's gone into more movies, and now she's doing bloody Aquaman, which is pretty cool. But when she finishes Aquaman, depending when we shoot the next film, she'll come work with us again for a lot less money than Aquaman, but because we're friends now.
Yeah.
And there really is a camaraderie behind it. It really is. So
I totally get that, Adam. And again, it's, you know, it's getting the right energy, it's connecting with the right people, and then it brings something far greater than you could have ever imagined if you'd have just had these random people that you didn't have a connection with.
Yeah. And the thing about it, with a lot of these people, like we've got an example would be a friend of ours pitched us, and again, I don't really put it, but we've now, because of our little movie, we've now got some backers come forward who want to help us with the slate. I think I mentioned it before, of doing other films. And that also means that we can, like, a friend of ours had an idea for a movie we thought was amazing, but he can't write. So we go, okay, we're going to give you a couple of quid for that idea, and I'm going to bring in someone else to write it, and I'll pay them to write the screenplay. And if the screenplay's at the right place, we'll finance the movie, we'll make it, right? And the fact we can do that now, because of what's happened with our tiny movie, that we can, we're not paying the fortune, but we can turn around to people I know who are writers who at the moment are still pushing their art. And I go, look, well, we're going to cover your mortgage. Here's some money that will allow you to keep the lights on while you work on this. A friend of mine, Joe Zylis, is a stand-up comedian. He's written a novel, and he wanted to be a screenwriter. So I've been working with him on a few things, and we've just had a job come in recently, which we're now tying up the paperwork for, which has been optioned by Netflix before it's even the script's been written. And Joe's going to come in and actually write with me on that as a co-writer, because he's got some good bones about him, a guy called Joe Zylis. And so, you know, we're kind of like, as cliched as it sounds, we're trying to do the rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing. And it seems to be working out, although if it all goes wrong, we're blowing Tony, obviously, because he's our lawyer. But it's looking all right so far. We're getting there, I think. He said, fingers crossed. But yeah.
It sounds brilliant. I mean, as you've been talking about, you know, meeting the right people and staying away from, you know, people who don't support you and that sort of thing. And obviously, you know, having a good lawyer is obviously one of those important things. But do you have any other... Can I tell
you one thing? Can I cut you off? Just so you know, just to be entirely sure. So a friend of mine used to do comedy with me. There's a guy called Rhys Darby. He's an actor. He's in Jumanji and Flight of the Conchords, like that. And when I first went to LA, he'd been out there for years. And I was like, oh, I need to get an agent. I need to get this. He goes, no, you don't. He goes, all you need is a really good lawyer. And I'm not saying it because Tony's on the call. I'm genuinely not. Hand on my heart. I went to Tony after I've been screwed over by producers, right? Yeah. If you've got, like, I've had friends of mine say, I'll give you a cliche, so a classic. A friend of mine wrote a screenplay with another friend. Yeah. And because they're mates, they didn't have any contracts. Because they're friends, they don't need it. Then they fell out. Now, my friend Clive was a really, really good screenplay. He can't do anything with it because he has no chain of title, and he won't talk to the other guy because they hate each other, and he won't talk to him either. So that film will never get made. Because what people don't understand, if you don't have a clear chain of title, then a studio can't take it on in case there's some kind of legal thing later. Little things like that are so important. And people say, well, he's my friend, I don't need to get a contract. Well, if he's your friend, you won't mind signing a contract. Because we get tied up in that side. Because I mentioned it because I've just been gushing about these wonderful people. But every project we've done, even our friends, sign a contract before they walk onto the set. Every single one. My friend who's come up with this idea, he was like, oh, have it. I said, no, man, let me give you some money for this and sign this contract so we have the rights to use that IP. He's like, don't worry about it. I go, it's all good. You know, and because one thing in this industry we do, because we're creatives, and I'm guilty of it, I've learned the hard way. We go, yeah, I'll be fine because we love each other. It's great. But I've been in love with women and we've broken up. You know, I've loved cars and all of a sudden they blew up on the motorway. It's one of those things where it really is. And Rhys said to me, he said, look, whatever you do, make sure you've got a contract. Even if you haven't got a lawyer, you can. There's a website or a podcast called what's it called? Oh, No Film School. And on there, they've got lists of do's and don'ts in the industry, contracts you can look at. They're American, but they'll give you an idea. Even if you just write it on a napkin, who's doing what, make sure that you write things down. And if they really are friends, then they won't mind.
I couldn't agree more. And also, Tony has this amazing book called The Filmmaker's Legal Guide, and he does courses for months. So if you haven't been to them, people, go to them because they're really important. But
they really are.
Important. Yeah. No, it's
it
really
sounded
good.
like a punt for Tony. I wasn't, honestly, I swear to you, my hand on my heart, it wasn't me. I mean, he's a friend, but it's one of the things where, you know, it's so important when you are a creative, like our heads are in the clouds and we forget about the details that allow us to go out and make certain art or to write our screenplays or to do whatever. You know, a lot of people, I mean, when I first started this, I was always under the impression that if I registered my screenplay with the Writers Guild of America, then I was protected. You pay $25 and all it does is date stamp it so you can prove when you'd written it. They don't back you. There's no protection. If you really want to protect it, copyright it. You know, go and pay your, I think it's like $100. But if you don't believe in your project $100 worth, then it's probably not a great project anyway. It's important. I'll shut up now. Sorry.
No, that's, I mean, thank you for raising it, because, you know, I like you believe that this sort of thing is very important, because as you say, as creatives, you know, we are a lot of the time in our heads and thinking, oh, everything will work out, and life just is a bit more complicated than that.
It really is.
written down is always going to be helpful. But aside from that, have you got any other sort of like guiding principles that you usually stick to, like when you're taking something on or getting involved in something else?
It depends on what the project is. I mean, I wrote a TV show just before lockdown for a streaming service, which was a period thing I'd never done. And for that, the prep was totally different because it was based on actual events. It was set in the 1700s. It was set in Spain, all this kind of thing. And with that, it was really out of my comfort zone. It was the first time I've done something that's kind of based on real people. And that was probably the most difficult. And I was lucky enough to find somebody, Paul, I can't remember his last name. I brought on somebody who was an expert in the research and development. So one bit of advice I would say is if you are trying to write a period piece, or you're trying to write a piece which is set in a certain world, research is so important in trying to breathe a bit of life into your characters. I'm one of these people who I always do like I do a heavy treatment. I'll do 10 pages, so I know the story inside out. I usually write my ending first because I like to know what I'm aiming for. Yeah, so the monologue in Warhol was the first thing I wrote. I got really excited about it. I was like, how do I get there? Yeah. Because when you go to see a movie, the last thing you see is really what you take away with you, right? So if you write the ending first and you know where you're going, you go, how am I getting there? Then you've always got a clear route. And on the way, you may get a deviation and go, oh, now I'm going to chuck in the subplot. I'm going to go this way. But if you know where you're going to, it always helps. So I always do that. And I guess I'm weird, but kind of works for me. I think as someone who's tried to write projects to fit a marketplace or whatever, and I've done it, and I've got more screenplays that will never leave a drawer than I've sold, purely because you suddenly go, right, oh, that looks great, I'm gonna write one of those, and you get it wrong, or for some reason I've got the vibe for it. So I think if you've got a story, the best way to do it is to, I think, have a story or a film that you want to see, or a book you want to read. If you write that, then you're going to be driven to finish it, because a lot of the time it's hard. I mean, you get halfway into it and you're like, and then, I've usually got at least 2 screenplays on the go at any one time. But only because what I'll have is I'll have the screenplay I'm being paid to work on. I'll have another one, which is a bit of fun, which is almost like exercising my brain. So if I'm just doing, say, a horror film, I'll jump in and out, not very often, but every now and again, if I feel like I'm getting a bit of block or whatever, and jump into an action one, which is totally different, or a comedy or whatever. And that sort of limbers up the tendons of the mind a little bit, I find, and you go back into it with slightly perspective. That kind of works. And I talk to my friends, and I've got some amazing friends, and I made a massive mistake when I first started writing screenplays. And that was, I gave my screenplays to my best friends. So anything I've written is going to be amazing, obviously, right? Everything was so good until it landed on people's desks and they went, what the hell was he thinking? And then you sort of go to them again and you go, but why didn't you go, well, you're a mate. And you're going, oh, come on. And so what I do now is I've got certain people I know who are good friends, and they'll be like, do you want me to read it as your mate or as a critic? I just read it as a critic. Tell me what you think, where you see the holes in. And they do. And my harshest critic is my partner, Shelley. We would have been married, but bloody COVID. But anyway, and she is someone, I did a screenplay for a guy called Robert Laycock. Robert Laycock's one of the producers for Bond. And we had this default clause, which meant that, because on stuff like that, it's a bigger fee, it's more going on, more moving parts. And so they have these default clauses, which are literally date sensitive almost. If you hand it in late, they can claw back money and all these things. And I had probably 2 days to go. And I thought I'd nailed the screenplay, it was perfect. And Shelley read it, and she went, at the end of it, she finished reading it, and I went, what do you think? The ending. She went, well, I was like, what? And she was like, kind of cliche, kind of seen it before, and it's a bit, and on the nose. And I literally had one of those moments where I went, okay, I can't be with you right now. It's not you, it's me. I'm gonna go for a walk. And I hated her for about a day, and I came back and I reworked it, and they loved it. But you need people to turn around and go, you know what, this isn't working, man. Because, I've had people, I've written screenplays that I thought were great at the time, and then I've gone back and reread them now. And granted, every time you write a new project, you become better. You just find a shorthand for how you tell your story, or you learn different skills. And I've gone back and read stuff, and I'm literally on, what was I doing? How? And so it's like, obviously someone snuck in the night, wrote my name on it and tucked it among my other ones, because I didn't do this, it's crap. But at the time, you're so close to it, you're going, oh, that's great. And so I just think the keys for me would be find people that you trust their judgment. And again, if you've got a really, really good friend who's into video games and never reads anything, don't ask them to read your screenplay.
Yeah.
I'd rather go to the person with the Enid Blyton collection, right? And get them to read my horror than someone who's used to killing zombies online. Get someone who you think can do, and do it, get someone to do it. A great resource is the app Grammarly, because my English isn't, my spelling isn't as good as it is. And so what I'll do is I'll write, and then I'll pull out a block of action. It won't recognize the formatting. You can pull out a block of action and chuck it into Grammarly, and you can type into Grammarly what, like, you want fast pace or action, or what you're looking for, what you're trying to do, and it will move a few commas around and tidy you up a bit. And that does help. It really does. I used to use proofreaders as well before. I've got one now for a big project, but you have to pay them quite a lot of money. So you're going, and Grammarly's like 30 quid a year or something. So that's a really good tool for me personally. It might not be for someone else who has a real command of the English language. But for me, it really helps. I don't do note cards. I literally write a big treatment, work out where I am. I block out my main characters. I only do like a page on each character. I've got a friend of mine, Clyde, like literally he'll go, I've got to design my characters first. And he will write a book on each character. And I mean, he's doing one project now. Sorry, his name's Sean. It's not Clyde. Oops. Whoever he is. And he's supposed to start the screenplay about 6 months ago. He's writing himself, so that's fine. Hey man, if you're watching, sorry. But he spent so much time trying to get the minutiae, the details of these characters right, that you'll never see in the screenplay. That I think he's almost procrastinating starting the work. It could be that. If you say, right, I'm going to do a page on each character. Number one, it teaches you to be concise with your descriptions. You actually learn from keeping it tight, and you'll have a basic idea. I also write outside of my screenplay. An example would be for myself. You've got a character that always turns up late. Well, in my head, in my breakdown of him, I had this guy who basically, this is a project that's done, and the guy basically, his dad died and he left him an old car, and the car keeps breaking down, but he can't get rid of it because it was the last thing his dad gave him. Now, we don't know any of that in the screenplay, but so whenever he turns up and people give him crap about it, he'll react in a way that maybe wouldn't be expected and allows a bit of depth to the character. And if I want to bring it in later, there's another plot point which will help build him, fill him out a bit. But there's no mention of a car or his dad dying in the screenplay. But for me, I know who this guy is now. So I know if you give him crap about his football team, that's fine. But you talk about his car, he's going to take your head off. And it's just those little things that allow you to flesh them out a little bit, I think. Just so you know, everything I'm telling you could be absolutely wrong. This is just me and how I do it and how it works for me. So
it's really useful. And the other thing that struck me certainly from Warhol, but also from the other trailers that I've seen, is that your dialogue is really intelligent. So quite a lot of the time you'll watch a movie and you'll think, yeah, I'm not stupid. Why is the dialogue sort of so obvious or mediocre? Whereas yours is really intelligent. And it makes you want to watch more of it, frankly. But how do you manage to do that? Because it's quite unusual the way you use dialogue, I think.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Well, obviously I did stand up, so I'm quite wordy anyway. But my dad left when I was young, and I was raised by my mum, my grandmother, and 3 sisters who are all a lot cleverer than me. I dropped out of college and, bummed around a bit there, all super brainy and wonderful with families and living the life. And they were always so argumentative. Oh my God. You couldn't win an argument with any of them. And they're married to men. Like my sister, Siobhan, married my best friend from uni, who's like this he played England under 21s and stuff like that, rugby, and travelled. And my sister's 4'11", and she literally took his spirit, snapped it over her knee, and went, "You work for me now." And it's all of my sisters. Kerry, she lives out and just, you can't win with them. They're just so gobby, and they just, you know, and they're all these tiny little munchkin women. And so I think a lot of it comes from that. You know, it's, you know, I grew up with people who I'd open my mouth and they'd just destroy me. And now I'm basically engaged to a Kiwi who is a lawyer. She's a chartered accountant and, you know, has worked in this. So again, I surround myself. I mean, yeah, a lot of clever people around me. And the other thing is as well, and this is something I do as well, is if I'm out and I'm standing at a bus stop or I'm in a coffee shop, I wait for those splashes of conversation around me, and you hear some fascinating people say some fascinating things. And I'll hear a little splash of conversation, I'll make a note of it and go, I've got to find someone for that. You know, you'll find something. And some of it can be really banal, but just interesting or, you know, just fascinating. I was talking one time, when it comes, I mean, talking about stories and how I come up with stuff. I was talking to a really famous director once, and he's known for sort of 3D and visual sort of stuff like that. But he was saying, he said, look, when it comes down to screenplays or movies, all you want is a good story told well. That's it. Sometimes it will be a musical. Sometimes you want to tell it in black and white or silent or in animation or whatever. Just tell me a good story well. And that stuck with me because he was someone who's not known for, I mean, good stories, but, you know, he's known for other things, you know, big action stuff. And so for me, it was fascinating for him to say that. And I just thought, okay, if I can tell a good story well, that's my agenda. But then because of, you know, who I am and the life I've lived and you know, my friends I've also got some really fascinating and amazing people that I know, just on everyday life, friends of mine, who far cooler than I will ever be. And, you know, I lean into them sometimes and they'll tell me stories or say something, or they'll read something and come up with an idea. I mean, the more you can weave into the story, if you get your story right, you go, this is my story, this is where I'm going to be, and then take it, I'll put it in a drawer for a week or so, which I know a lot of people do, and then revisit it and go, okay, cool. And in that week, I've maybe heard 4 conversations on the bus, 2 in a bar, you know, whatever, and I want to change something. I mean, when we did our film Lair, which is one we just did, one of the actresses in that, Alana Wallace, is fantastic. And she came down and she read for the part, and I've met her before. Oh, this is if there's any actors involved. So about 4 years ago, I had a read through for a little project that never went anywhere. And I reached out through a website called Shooting People, which is pay £30 a year, and they post jobs for all sorts of film stuff. They can be good, they can be bad, but I was on there. And I put out a post on there and said, look, I want to hear my script out loud. I'm looking for actors to come down and read parts. And so people came down just for a read through. And Alana was one of them. And someone's got a cockatoo. Just feeding back. Can you hear that? It's weird. Oh, anyway, or Daleks or whatever. Anyway, so this girl came down and she was a Geordie. Yeah, I didn't give a shit. Me, fuck it. All right, you know, and she was great. And she read this tiny, tiny little role. And I didn't realise she had actually come down from Newcastle for no money. I was buying everyone lunch and I was giving them all orange juice and tube cards. I was paying for their tube ticket to come in. She came all the way from Newcastle just to help out. And I was blown away. So I kept her details. And then 4 years later, we're doing Lair. And I hit her up and said, do you want to come down and audition? Which she did do. And by then she'd done a couple of movies and she came down and she was perfect English. And I was like, I want you to be like Geordie. She's like, all right then. You know, but it was like someone who did this tiny thing for me really resonated. And you'll find that people go, if you go out of your way for someone, not all the time, you know, but if you do it, people notice that and they'll remember you for that, I feel. I mean, I sold a screenplay to a guy called Scott Mednick. And I reached out to Scott, didn't know him, with a project which was terrible, but I had balls. And I kept hassling him to read this project. He did Batman Begins, Jerry Maguire, Ninja Turtles. He's now rebooting Ninja Turtles, all right. But he's done great movies too. You know, he's done these great movies. And I basically stalked him on IMDb because a friend of mine met him and said he was nice. I'd never met him. And I was out in Cannes, and when I was first going out to Cannes for the film festival, I'd stay on a friend's sofa in Antibes with like a spring in my back and get the last tube, train home and miss all the fun. And I went into town and I found out he was in town, and I was just hanging out in town. I met him in a bar and he gave me like 20 minutes and we had a drink and we got on really well. And then we met for a coffee another time. And then about 2 years later, I wrote this romantic comedy and he read it and he went, I don't normally do this, but I want to option it. And I want a development deal and I want to do this film with you. And I was like, wow. But it was literally 4 years of me not being a complete git, but I'd send him an email and say, oh, have you read this? And what are you doing? What are you up to? And stuff like that. And he was just a really nice guy who maybe saw something in me that I, needed to cultivate for a few years before I get to a point where I could write something. And, and there's a story there as well. We had, because these were Paramount. And so we had the big contract coming through, like a phone book of a contract. And they wanted certain rights. And I was thinking, well, it's a big deal and I should do this. And my lawyer, Tony, was like, what if this is the only film you ever get made? And I was like, what? Because it was my first feature. And I was like, don't say that. And he goes, no, I'm not saying it is. He's saying, but think about it. Do you want to give away these rights and these things? And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, well, I'll do whatever you say, but here we go. And I went back and I basically, there was a clause in it that said they could replace me as a writer for the good of the project if they needed to. And they could bring in a writer for hire to do that. And I'd have to share credit. And Tony's like, you don't want to do that and also Tony reads my scripts and tells me when they're crap and when they're good as well. And so he talked to me and I turned the deal down and I walked away. And then about 2 weeks later, Scott came back and went, fine, whatever, let's sign it. And he agreed to all of mine and Tony's terms. And so it's one of those things where if you really, really believe in something, then you've got to believe in yourself too. Because all you need is that one person to kind of click. I mean, I've been turned down by so many people with scripts I've written, things I've done, positions I've been in where I could have got paid quite well to do something that I knew I wouldn't want to do, and I'll just end up hating it. It is like, I'll give an example would be, so horror genre, easiest to sell, get out there in the world, cheapest to shoot, okay? So I never thought about doing a horror movie, but I thought if I can do a horror movie that I'd quite like to see, that'd be a little bit different. So for instance, when in my movie Lair, we went out to casting and we have characters in it. And this is before we really started the diversity angle. So this would have been 3 years ago nearly when we started doing Lair. And it's much more prevalent now and good for it. So when we did that, 45% of our HODs were female. We recreated gay pride in our movie. We used an entire LGBTQ extras agency, partly because they brought their own kit and they were just amazingly good fun on the day. Although we shot in November, so they were just for summer and they were freezing, but it was brilliant. We had characters in it like Carly and Carl. We had a character in it called Joey, who could have been a boy or a girl. Carl could have been Carly because their gender had no resonance on the story itself. It didn't matter. Yeah. And we had casting agents say, you've got to make him a boy or a girl. I'm going, why? It doesn't matter. One's a 16-year-old kid. And they wouldn't take it. So that's years ago. So we basically thought, right, what we'll do is we'll make it. So we put the project together, and our family, when the studio picked it up, our family is literally 4 women because that's how the casting panned out, right? Yeah. And they were like, well, can't we make it a normal couple? I was like, why? And why don't you make it a bloke? And I was like, well, because we've got 2 women in the family, and there's a dynamic there because the lead in it has never been in a same-sex relationship, and she just happens to fall in love with a girl. I won't get into it, but that was where it was. And I said, if you make it a man and a woman, it's not going to be there's not as much jeopardy for Maria because they would have been related before. And they wanted us to swap it out. And hand on my heart, this is the truth. I swapped it out for a man because I was getting a studio deal and I was willing to do anything they wanted to give me the money to make my film. So I was going to sell myself out, right? And I was like, okay, cool, let's do that. It will be a fella then. It won't be the same, but let's do that. And then when we got dropped, we went out and went, right, let's do it how we really want to do it. And we were able, because we didn't have much money, because it was us now, we were like, we're going to do it how we want to do it. And we went back and we made it the version it is now, which we feel is the better film. And again, it's that whole, if you really, really believe in it, you can have it's the J.K. Rowling story where she got turned down by so many people, you know.
Yeah.
It's And I think as well, if you get the chance to pitch your idea to someone, if you get a chance to sit in a room with somebody, or you walk into an elevator in Cannes and you happen to bump into somebody, if you really are passionate about the project, it comes over. If you're writing a space film, because everyone's doing space films, you won't excite that person. And the one cardinal sin, which I made so many times, see, this is, walk on my ashes, I deserve it. If you've got someone's ear and they're interested in your project, don't go, oh, I've got another one, and start selling them the second one. Because I've done that as well. They're loving the first one. They go, oh, and I've got another one, this one, and they go, oh. And all of a sudden, they're diverted by the one which isn't as good, because if it was, you would have pitched that first. And I lost the whole deal.
Oh my goodness.
It's an adventure, but you know.
That is really good advice. Adam, I'm conscious of time because I want to let people just ask a couple of questions.
No,
if
that's fine.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, cool.
Sort of just before we do that, I know your studio Ditto Films. Is that something that people can sort of watch out for in the future? You know, get involved with potential. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, look, Ditto Films is pretty much me, Shelley, a laptop, and a few like-minded folk. We're not, you know, anything massive at the moment. We're lucky though in a position where we're about to hopefully become a little bit bigger and better than what we're doing. You know, if someone's got you know, a project which is amazing and great and fantastic, and they want to drop us a line or something, say hello. Don't send us anything. What you can do is say, hey, I've got this great idea for a project. At the moment, we're only looking at feature films because we've got a couple of TV projects. Actually, no, TV projects, whatever, cool. If they've got a great idea, we're not doing shorts, and they've got it to a position where it's ready to go out. This is something I learned as well. What I used to do is I'd have a screenplay that was almost ready, but not quite, almost, and you'd send it to someone and they won't read it. Or they'd read that and they won't let you send it again. Never send out anything until you are 100% sure it is ready to go. I had a project going to CAA for Hugh Jackman, and it got to the second page, the script came back. And the nice of them send it back, because they don't normally. And they did it to prove a point, I think it was. And halfway down page 2, they'd circled a spelling mistake I'd written, and written, stopped here, and sent it back.
Oh my goodness.
And, yeah, and the reason for that, and I'm sort of finding it myself, is this. You get so many people sending you scripts, so many people sending ideas. If they don't provide the same care and attention when they're putting it together, then why would you? You know, if you really can't be bothered to spell check something or format it properly, or the best one I've found, because obviously they go, the maximum should be around 120 pages. We got a script set in the other day, 120 pages. They'd basically reformatted the final draft, so the margins were so small, and dropped the font to probably about a 9 to go as 120. Do you know, when you pick up a screenplay, you can, and I'm sure I've got one somewhere, I guarantee, yeah, I have. When you pick up a screenplay, you can actually see, your thumb should have room on the margin on a standard screenplay. When the text is here, someone's trying to get it under the wire. And the reason is shorter scripts now are selling more because the attention span is smaller. People watch them on their phones and stuff. People watch them on their iPads. And also, they're cheaper to produce. If you're shooting 90 minutes rather than, so, you know, up to 120 pages, make sure, if you want to let us know, make sure 100% that you are ready for it to go. Because if we read it one time and I went, I'll read it, Shelley will read it, whatever. And if it's not great, then we'll come back and we'll reply and we'll tell you it's not for us. But if you genuinely haven't bothered putting the energy into formatting and putting that right, then we won't read it again. So get it right first time. And don't send anything. Just send us an email saying, I've got this great idea about a cat in a hat, and we'll send you a release form. Because that's something as well. Another thing writers should always do is have a paper trail. And this is something Tony taught me as well. You need to save those emails where you write to people and say, do you want to read this and stuff? Because people say ideas get stolen. Sometimes, but not always. It's not as prevalent as I've heard people talk about. But if you keep a paper trail where you go, well, I sent my script to Adam on the 23rd of October, 1942, and here it is. It went through here. Here's a copy of the email I sent, and here's his reply. You can see it sent. So if I run off with someone's idea, you know, and the same with us, we'll send a release form so you can go, we're allowed to read it. And we get that back and we file that. So that an example would be, we've had 2 projects come in recently, and one we want to make and one we don't. They're both boxing films, and they're both set in London. Now, if we go off and make a boxing film set in London, the other guy who we turned down because it wasn't as good could go, I sent them a boxing film like that month, and now they've taken my idea. It's as easy as that. Have you ever seen, there's a show on TV called, oh my God, it's about the rap industry. It's a really huge show. Oh my God. It's about Biggie Smalls and stuff. It's been running about 6 seasons. Empire, it's called Empire, right? And it's about rappers in LA and stuff like that. And that's been running about 5 or 6 seasons. I wrote that exact show about 8 years ago. Almost exactly the same premise, similar characters, almost the same. I never sent it to anyone. It was in a drawer. I never sent it. Other people think like we do. Other people listen to the same music, come with the same ideas, watch the same, read the same books and come up with the same ideas. And a lot of the time people are going, oh, you stole my, and so again, much like with the lawyer thing, just keep your emails. If you got an email back from me saying I'm reading it, keep that. There's your proof, I've read it. And a lot of people don't do that. But yeah, we are looking for some more content moving forward. We are looking for projects that aren't massive to begin with. And one thing I would say as well is a lot of people say, and I got told this when I first started, when you write a screenplay, think about budget. I say think about story, because if the story is really, really that good, the money will come. It really will. I mean, our first film we made for, like I said, pennies on the pound, but we've now got a couple of really big projects coming up because they warrant that expenditure, and we've been able to find the money to put behind it. But yeah, I mean, drop Kashifa line at, I think it's Kashifa Ditto Films, and then he'll give it to Shelley or me or to Karen, and we'll have a look. And if we, and then we'll send you out a release form. And if there's something great, then we'll come back to you. But you also have to remember, and this is really important, is just because we go, it's not for us, doesn't mean it's terrible, because there are certain budget restrictions we've got, certain amount of projects we can take on. And a lot of films, like for instance, my film, my romantic comedy one, which Scott Mednick picked up, was I think it went through about 5 people who didn't want it. And the first time they said they didn't want it, I went, oh my God, it's terrible, everyone hates it. But they didn't write any explanation saying why they didn't want it. They just said that it's a pass. I literally got, it's a pass from us, thanks, good luck with the future, that kind of thing. And you go, obviously it's awful, there it's terrible. But it wasn't, and I believed in it. And I got it to someone who happened to be, you know, a proper big name in Hollywood. And they went, this is great, let's make a movie. And that's the difference. You know, it's a creative industry and it's so easy. We're all so vulnerable as well. You know, we will believe every bad thing said about us, but every good thing we go, yeah, well, okay, he's just saying that or whatever. To me, anyone other than your nan says it's good, take it, right? You know, because your nan will always love you. But do you know what I mean? You've got it, you just take it. Just go, look, okay. And have balance on it. You know, if someone writes back to you and says not for us, don't think it's the end of it. It might be, although it could be awful. It's up to you. If you really believe in it, give it a good go. The other thing I would say as well, and I think this is important, and I'm sorry I keep talking, but if you've got it to the finishing point where you know it's 100% ready to rock and you've read it and people have read it and go, this is great, then push on with it. But if people are going, yeah, it's okay, it's not bad, and it's been 10 years, probably you've got to put it in a drawer next to some of my crap. Because there is a point where you kind of go, and it doesn't mean it's terrible, but it means it's time to start something else, because whatever it is isn't connecting. Yeah. And if you spend all your time on that, developing a character for so long, nameless person, that you never start your screenplay, because that one there, because my crap screenplays have taught me and made me better. So the ones that I have sold or got made are now better because of the time I spent on those. Yeah. So put it in a drawer after a good few years. But if people are saying it's amazing, and also another thing you do, you can come out 5 years later, look at it again, and go, I know how to fix it.
Exactly.
Sorry, you want to ask?
Such amazing advice, Adam. I mean, I'm just blown away. It's been absolutely amazing talking to you about all this stuff. But I'm just going to see if there's any other questions from anyone else, because I know that we need to let you go shortly. Does anybody have
another sort of 20 minutes? So I'm good. I'm having fun.
Any burning questions for Adam at all? Everyone goes shy. Is that a hand? Is that a hand up, Chris?
I'll probably scratching his head.
Well, I think there's so much more that I would like to hear from Adam.
Hey, fella.
Hello. I fall into this category of aspiring writer trying to make that first step. But the people I meet on this group are just amazing. I find that very inspiring. And every time I attend one of these talks, I'm getting a step closer to finding the courage of putting something to paper. But I am a slow mover, I have to admit. When you write about topics, are they topics from your personal life? Are they things you just encounter? You said earlier you tried to write for a market and then found that doesn't work. The typical advice is write what you know. But
yeah, and to an extent that is true. But then, you know, one of my favorite films is E.T. and Spielberg isn't an alien. And I think, you know,
exactly.
There are great storytellers out there of every rank and file. And a lot of people have stories which they've touched their lives that they bring to their screenplay and their work, which is amazing. But I also have an imagination. So I like to create worlds. I wrote a story for a comic book a while ago, which got made. And I find things that fascinate me. And I think if you're always eager and ready to learn, then you'll be willing to do that. I mean, like I said, I've just written 2 horror films. I have never been attacked by a Jason Kruger, Freddy Krueger, or anything like that. I've never had a few bad relationships, which could be described as horror films, but that's about it. But they were stories that I thought, okay, this could be a stepping stone for me. Let me try and tell a story in my own way, but in this genre. So I did that. I mean, I've written a romantic comedy, which is the one that got picked up by Scott Mednick. And what happened there was I was out in America. My partner, Shelley, and a couple of our friends went on to Santa Barbara wine tasting. And we wandered around this, it's where Sideways, which is one of my favorite movies, was made. And we were wandering around there and I was like, I would love to hang out here. And so I went home and I wrote a story set in wine country in Santa Barbara, you know, and what I needed to find out about grapes, I looked up on the internet, you know, and that got optioned by this guy. And so, yeah, if you've got something personal in your life which you think hasn't been seen before, then that's intriguing, it's interesting. I think that's a good place to start. However, if you're passionate about cars, or if you watch a TV show and it's set in Rwanda about a chicken farmer, start researching chicken farmers. One thing that's so cool about the internet now is you can literally pretty much find out whatever you want to know. Yeah. But the key, and again, a lot of what I've said on here, I mean, I'm sure other people have said to me when I was coming up, but just think about, do you want to sit down and watch this movie? And if there's a film you want to see, I'm pretty sure there'll be other like-minded people who want to see it as well. If you've got a story about a chicken that falls in love with a robot, there'll be people that want to see the Chicken Robot movie. But it's a case of, I would always say though, the Chicken Robot movie is the one you maybe, it depends on what you want to do. Like for us, we're now starting to grow as a business, which means we need to have a degree of commerciality. So all of our projects have to be things we think we can sell. So I might have this great story about a chicken and a robot, but at the moment, I would not do that or work on that because we're still finding our feet. So you, as a fledgling writer trying to come out there, if you think about the best story, like an example would be my friend who told me an idea for a story and we're going to hire someone to write it. He literally had this idea, which he said, oh, what about this? And I'm like, that is brilliant. And I can't write it because I haven't got time and whatever, but I've got a friend of mine who could write that kind of comedy. And so we're going to put them together. So if you've got, I would say start with your passion, brother. Find something that really excites you and go, if it's, I don't know, arm wrestling or kickboxing or windsurfing, go, right, what's the best, if I were to sit down and watch a windsurfing film, what would I need? What would excite me? What kind of windsurfing film would I want? I know, let's go for the classic hero story. You know, they start off, they lose their nerves, someone comes along who's the teacher, helps them get back on the board, and while they're doing that, there's another guy who's gonna, who used to be his enemy, and he's gonna sabotage his board. You know what I mean? You build it, you build the blocks. Yeah. And at the end you go, I've now got a story about windsurfing that I would probably pay money to see. So I think it has to come from passion, man. It really does.
Good. That's good advice. Now, what surprises me about you is that it is so diverse. You've written horror, you've written thriller, you've written romantic comedy. That's not very typical because a lot of people like to know, you know, oh, this is the guy who writes the amazing horror movies, or this is the guy who has the voice down for, romantic drama or romantic comedy. Do you find that easy to switch between these genres?
I find it easy, but I'll tell you this, and you obviously know quite a bit about the industry, because I actually got offered representation by a really big agency in Los Angeles, but they wanted me to be a horror writer, and I don't want to be a horror writer. I want to tell stories. And so for me, I kind of went the independent route and thought, I'll go out and tell the stories I want to tell, because, you know, it's like anything, especially in Hollywood anyway. Everyone wants to put you in a box, and exactly like you say, you're right. Here's the guy that does horror. Here's the guy that does romantic comedy. But I also read books that are horror and read books that are romantic comedies. And there are certain things that I find are great stories. I like dirty jokes, and I like old dad jokes, and I like silly jokes, and so I wouldn't be happy just being the horror guy. So I turned down representation and tried to do it on my own, which seems to be going okay, because again, I like horror movies, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. And so I sort of took my own route. However, probably the clever thing to do, now I say it out loud, I realize I might have been an idiot. Probably the clever thing to do was go, I'll be the horror guy, and do 2 of them. And they go, I'm leaving to do other stuff. Now I've made my money, or something like that. But for me, it was a case of, at that point in time, I wanted to tell other stories. And I thought the only way I can do that is to go out on my own. But yeah, I think, you know, what do you have as a hobby? Do you have more than one hobby? Maybe you like fixing cars and also sketching. Maybe you like writing as well. You do different things. So for me, it's the same with the screenplay. You know, I'll sit there and go, right, I've got an idea for a screenplay, and it's this. I don't say I want to go and do a romantic comedy. An idea will hit me. It will be in a certain genre or a certain type of film. And I'll go, right, I'm going to try and do that. And I'll do the treatment. And if the treatment holds together, then I'll start a screenplay. If it doesn't, I'll go, well, that's in a draw. And in fact, there's a guy at the moment, a guy called Alistair, I've got his last name. He's a fantastic writer. And we can't afford him to write a screenplay for us, but he might do it anyway because he's a good guy. And I came with an idea for an action film that I can't write. And I said, look, you've now got a break from your last movie. You're better at doing this type of action than I am, because it's a revenge sort of John Wick type thing. Really little movie, nothing huge. Do you want to do it? And he's going, yeah. So here, I'll take my idea, you write that, I get story by, you're the screenplay writer. So again, I think you just find a story you like. I think the best way to put it is write something you want to see. And if you can do that, then, and the resources are there, man. If you've got an iPhone, you've got access to the world, and you can find out anything. The amount of times I hit, you know, on Google, it says, feel lucky.
Yes.
Smack that once a day. I guarantee over the course of a couple of weeks, something will come and go, that's my movie. Tell you.
Good tip. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
Mr. Crow, I've got a question. You've done quite a bit, and you're above my head right now. So the path that you took to get to where you're at now, you obviously wrote a lot. But what point the transition did you take from taking it from the script to, did you go out and film stuff and then put things out to get recognition that way? Or did you just pitch your screens without any formatted? How did you go about that for a person at my level? Because the money that you're making them with is within my budget range.
There you go.
But the path is not clear.
So when I first I was a journalist for a while, and I was a journalist, and I went up to cover the Edinburgh Festival. And when I was there, I saw comedy, and I kind of fell into comedy. That was after I came back from traveling. And so I was always writing a bit. I've always written a bit of poetry, a bit of this, bit of that. And for me, I was lucky enough I started submitting jokes to over here. I'm not sure where you are, but in the UK, we've got something called Sky TV. And there was a show on there called The Broken Comedy Show. And I found a writer's room where you could submit a joke. And if they used it in the TV show, you'd get paid for it. And so I did that. And I got paid a couple of quid for a few jokes. And then there was something similar with the BBC. And they were doing for BBC Radio Cambridge. And they had this comedy sort of news program for a little bit. And I submitted jokes to that. So I started getting a couple of pounds for doing a couple of little bits of writing. And I picked up a couple of quid as a journalist, writing a few articles. I wasn't a full-time journalist. I just write it every now and again. If a story took me, I'd write a story on it. So for me, I'd been writing. I wrote a screenplay because I thought I could be the next superstar of writing, and it was bad. But in writing that, I kind of learnt the mechanism for understanding how a film would be made, if that makes sense. You write a screenplay, and I never really imagined how they were going to turn it into a movie. And after I realized I'd written something that was awful, I sort of started looking around online and watching behind the scenes about making films and watching what went into turning, if I ever was lucky enough to get a screenplay made, into a actual project. And then I thought, I'm going to go and make a little movie. And I put together 500 quid and I did a tiny little short film with a couple of mates. And we made like a 3-minute short film. I was like, okay. And then the next one I did, like I told the story earlier, I don't know if you were around, but I was in Australia and someone gave me a couple of £1,000 to make a bigger short film. And that short film did really well on film festivals. And
yeah, that's about where I came in at, is when you were doing that. Okay.
And a producer liked the dialogue that I had written in that short film, and he'd seen it somewhere. And he said, I've got a screenplay and it's kind of clunky and I don't like how it sounds. Do you want to punch up the dialogue on my screenplay? And again, I went back and after reading it and said, this isn't a very good screenplay. Do you want me to write you one? And he hired me to write him a screenplay. And so again, part of this is luck. But I also was one of those people who, even when I was like doing comedy or journalism, if there was a film festival going on, I'd turn up at, a film festival. If I was in Bradford, there's a film festival going on, I'm going to a film festival. Because I also found the more I surrounded myself with people like yourself who work in this industry or aspire to do it, the luckier I got. If you're around film festivals, you give your card to the right person, you never know who that person's going to meet. You pitch your idea to someone while you're at Fright Fest in central London watching a horror film, they might go, that's great, I know somebody who does this. And so I find that as a writer, it gets quite lonely. And if you're trying to get out of the blocks at the moment, then surround yourself with more writers. Go to film festivals where people are trying to create. I guarantee any film festival you go to, there'll be someone there wandering around with a camera or a friend who's a producer who wants to do their first short film. And you turn around and go, look, I've got a screenplay and a couple of grand. Let's do it. It's one of those things where once you've got something to show, because the other thing is as well, and what was lucky with me with Warhol is after that, I got other writing jobs, and I got them because I could send them my short film and they go, oh, this is great. Because if you think about it, to read someone's screenplay is a couple of hours sitting there reading it. You send someone a 10-minute short film with, say you write something with amazing dialogue or a really interesting twist. They can watch that while on the train going home when they weren't even considering doing anything, and that connects, and they're going to give you that call. So it's just a case of, if you feel that someone said to me ages ago, they said, you know that you're a screenwriter if you can't do anything else, in so much as that, if you can do anything else, go and do that, because it's going to be hard being a screenwriter. It's one of those things where, again, it's passion. If you've got a story you really want to tell, I guarantee you'll be able to come up with the goods. And if you can surround yourself with people to help you, then you'll get there quicker. Sorry, you were saying?
So Adam, how do you really feel?
Sorry, man. I just
no. I think it's great. In fact, when you were talking about the way you write your screenplay from the ending to the back, I've heard numerous intelligent, educated, smart writers that I've listened to say that they approach theirs the same way, and they do that. They say they find the key ingredient and work backwards from it. That way the story that they're writing leads to the point that they're trying to make. And that's a good tackling approach. So when you said that, my ears have been perked all day. I don't have my camera on because my hair is a mess. I'd make a part in probably one of your horror films right now.
That's all right, man. That's good.
But I'm loving your information, and I'm liking where you're at, and you're giving me that other deal to step outside the script, to go ahead and put something together and get it out there, to try to socialize on that platform without trying to make it perfect, because I do not have a 6K camera at my regiment right now.
You don't need, I mean, it's one of those things as well. It's like right now, I mean, example being the new iPhone 13 Pro that just came out. I mean, that can shoot ProRes. I mean, you can rack focus on it. It's insane. And there's a side to it now where if you think I mean, everyone's going 6K and 4K, but most things can be screened on a cinema screen at 1080p still, man. You know, it's one of those things where if you've got a good story to tell and you surround yourself with people who want to jump on board and tell you that story, number one, it's going to take twice as long as you thought it would. It's going to be twice as hard, but it's going to be 10 times as more rewarding when you see somebody, when you've created some little character, even in a short film, and you've created, say, Jennie, and you stand there and you watch someone embody that character that was just lines on a piece of paper and say your words, dude, you're going to fall out your chair and you're going to go, now I've got what I need to move to the feature. Because the first time you see that, first time, even at a table read, if you just get some people around, your grandmother and your cat, your dog and your budgie, and go, right, we're reading my screenplay and you're going to play Bert, and you hear them saying your words. I've actually, and this is a true story, on my last movie, my screenplay that I wrote, I was directing, I actually went over to Ashleen Diath, who's a really fantastic actress, and Alana, and said, look, I've just read what I've written and it's absolute crap. Save me. And they went on and improvised the scene dialogue-wise, and it was better than I could have come up with. Because, you know, at times you think you've got it right, but then when you put the words in the mouths of someone who, you know, is a real actor, a real actress, because that, you know, it's like with books, they're the stories in your head. What happens if the actors in your head are terrible? You know, you're not going to get anywhere. So it's a case of, honestly, if you've got even a little bit of desire to write it, just get it written. You know, someone else said, don't get it right, get it written. Someone famous said that. Get some framework in place. Write the first draft and then pull it apart and then get it right later. Grab one scene, get your iPhone and 3 friends and film it and see how they sound. See if the dialogue feels naturalistic. See if, you know, one of the biggest things I find in people who are newly writing is they like, for instance, if you and I are having a conversation, you know, like we don't use each other's names, but people, you'll find in big chunks of, hey, Dave, how are you today? I'm great. Rob, how are you? Fine. So, Dave, I was thinking, well, Mike, I was going to go, and you go, people don't talk like that. But on paper, you kind of feel you might do that. I've done it myself. When you see your friends, you know, if I see Kevin, I'm like, hey man, what's up? I don't go, hey Kevin. You know, it's getting it naturalistic. And if you've got an idea for something you want to do, just start off with one part of it. Start off with one scene. Sit around with people who aren't actors and just go, see, does this sound right? Does this feel right? And I promise you, man, it will light a fire in your belly and it will push you to the next one and the next one. And then after a while, you're going to look around and go, oh shit, I've written a screenplay.
Adam, this is like a masterclass. It's amazing. Have we got any of the ladies in the house want to ask a question? Because I know you've been quite unusually quiet tonight on the question front. Not to put you on the spot at all, but.
So I used to get treated like this at most bars and most clubs when I was single. No one would talk to me, especially not women. It's fine. But this has been really, really good fun. And if anyone got even one iota of benefit from my conversation, then obviously I've done it really wrong. But no, honestly, I think that to anyone who's out there, if you want to write, then, and a big thing that someone said to me, and this is, I genuinely believe this as well, I would write even if I wasn't earning a living at it, because it's what I do. I just do. I can't help it. And, you know, even if the stories you tell are just for yourself or your family or whatever, that's a good place to start, you know? So, yeah.
Been an absolute joy, Adam, really. It's been, you know, so many golden nuggets of advice, seriously. And thank you for taking so much of your evening up to be with us as well. It's really been delightful. And thank you to Mr. Tony Morris and Elliot Grove as well for the connection.
I didn't know Elliot was on. Oh my God. Hey, Elliot, how are you? Sorry, I didn't know. Oh.
Hiding in the corner in a little box.
No, and honestly, I've had a lot of fun. It's been great. And, you know, I'm like everybody else out there as well. I'm still, you know, going one film to the next. You know, I haven't, you know, made a million quid and I'm not sitting on a throne and somewhere. I'm just like everybody else. I'm out there chasing the next idea, trying to get it written down, trying to get it out there. And luckily, you know, things are sort of going well. But, you know, you got to remember, I was picked up by a studio and dropped the next day when Disney got bought. And that's something as well. A lot of the time you hear about people getting these amazing deals, and they do happen, but they're more rare than you would think. And like, my philosophy really is, I want to be able to earn a living doing something I enjoy. I don't need to be a millionaire, but if I can keep the lights on and work with my friends and pay my bills, then I think I've cracked it, and that's kind of where I am. And I meet so many people with so many great ideas and great stories to tell, and it's just a case of persistence. If you really are passionate about something, I mean Elliot being one of them. I mean, God, look, he built Rain Dance. It's, if you've got this one idea and you just go, you know what, I'm going to see this through, then you're ahead of the curve. And there'll be times where you will be eating beans out of a can, I promise you, because I've done that as well. But if you really believe in it and you stay focused, you will run into people that are like-minded, and you'll build that little network, and you'll start pulling each other up one by one. And at some point you'll be sitting there like, I remember we were at a film festival with Warhol in America, and it was my first time seeing it at a big festival. We got into a festival called Bend, Oregon, which is like a mini Sundance. It's so cool, and everyone's lovely. And it's really weird. It's the first film festival where they pay for you to fly out, and you go, oh, this might be real. Because I've been to film festivals before where literally I turned up at one film festival with Warhol, and it was in Venice Beach, and it was at the back of a pub, and they were screening my film on a bed sheet, and I got a trophy that I'm sure the guy built that morning. And yeah, I know. And then I was in Long Beach sitting there going, oh my God, look, that's that guy from the movies, you know what I mean? And so, but there really is a side to it where if you're passionate and you believe in it and you really want to do it, then you haven't really got much of a choice but to do it. Just do it on your own terms. That's what I'd say.
Awesome advice. I think we're all in awe of you, Adam, and we're going to watch the rest of your journey tonight.
Well, look, I'm genuinely grateful, and it's been really good fun. I wasn't, I wasn't sure what to expect, but it's been lovely, and it was really lovely to see you as opposed to just emailing you, and hopefully we can do something again sometime.
I hope so. And thank you so much. And thanks everybody for bearing with Zoom. I know we're all a bit zoomed out. So thank you, and all the very best for everybody's projects. And thank you, Adam. And hello to Shelley as well, even though we've seen her name. Sounds like such a duo together as well, which is inspirational.
She's next door, I think. She's in the other room. I think she's doing something else. Again, she's someone who's my harshest critic, but also my greatest supporter. And I think there is that as well. And when we, after the whole thing went wrong with the studio, and because Shelley always said to me, all you need is one producer to say yes to get your film made as a director. She always said that. And I was like, yeah. And I met so many dodgy producers. And then eventually she produced my film. So she was the one that had to believe in me. So she was there all along. She just didn't want to do it until I talked her into it. But, all you need is that one person, that one break. But I'll let you go. And again, thank you very much for having me on board. It was fun.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay.
Thank
Have a great day. Bye. I'm going to work out how to come out of this now. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, there you go. I think I'm learning. Yeah, I'm so clever.
Oh, that was absolutely brilliant. We're all speechless.
I think that was one of the best ones, Jenny. Adam is amazing.
He is amazing, and very, very grateful to the lawyer of the. I was going to say the moment, but the best lawyer Adam's ever met, and this is not the only time we've heard this. So thank you, Tony, as well for bringing Adam in, because that was really enjoyable.
That was very good.
Yeah, it's just he couldn't sort of the nuggets of the golden nuggets kept on coming. It was it's really good.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This session was so inspiring, and a lot of things you said that just resonated, and it kinds of gives you a reinforcement that you're on the right track. So I would totally relate to a lot of things you're saying. It was just very, very inspiring.
And that whole sort of it's so Warhol, the short that he was talking about, if anybody hasn't seen that, you can actually get that on Vimeo, the whole thing, and it's really quite impactful. And it's brilliant.
What's his Vimeo link? Because I
somewhere in the chat.
Yeah, no, but I fell offline for a moment, so I lost all the chat.
Save the chat.
Yeah, but when I came back on, the earlier part of the chat had gone, so didn't manage to save.
So is that even if you click in the right hand, it doesn't save?
Oh,
Michelle
yeah.
put it in actually. Brilliant. Thanks, Michelle. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's really worth watching, and I think I said the dialogue's amazing. I've never heard dialogue like that I haven't heard dialogue like that in films, because so often it kind of talks down to the audience, as in, you know, it's almost like you're a bit thick. Whereas, you know, this is really clever dialogue. It's really impressive.
Because dialogue is often what people struggle to write, isn't it? Effectively.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, we tend to sort of do the whole, you know, if hello so and so, and we just do it a bit too realistic sometimes, or unrealistic, but also a bit realistic. And there's somewhere in the middle, isn't there, that works.
I just watched a 10-minute short today by one of our film students. It was brilliant. And at the end of it, realized no one actually said anything. I saw the movies. The soundtrack could have been better, but there are people that I know who could make it better.
I just copied and pasted, Tremaine, the Vimeo again on the chat. So if you want to grab that, it's at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Brilliant.
It was so inspiring, this guy. I missed some of it. I had to go and drop Emily in town, but it was just so inspiring.
No, it's absolutely brilliant. Really, really good.
I was stuck what to ask him. I was taking it all in.
Put you on the spot. I just thought, you know,
there's just so much to absorb. But I
want to participate. Yeah.
So I was like, come on. Give you a chance. But then I shouldn't put you all on the spot like that.
How do you deal with voice? You know, how do you write voice for somebody who isn't like you?
How do you write the voice for somebody who isn't like you?
Yeah, this is something that Tremaine rightfully pointed out. Struggling to write different voices. You know, it's easy to write for somebody who's like you because they talk like you and you know what you talk like. What if you write for a character who's different from you? How do you know that their voice still sounds naturalistic?
I don't know what anybody else does, but what I tend to do is I listen and I observe other people, whether that's in real life or in movies or in books. And then I take sort of little bits of different people and then my imagination, and I kind of cook it all up in a pot.
Mm-hmm. I would think to play back what you'd written to see how it sounds as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You play it back to different people to get their opinions?
Well, even just to record what you've written down and then actually hear the audio back to see if it actually resonates in the same way or it sounds static, or if it has a flow.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Yeah, and one more thing that really helps us, you know, when you're writing for somebody else, it's time and again, it's good to keep, you know, reflecting whether the character is not sounding like you. Because I totally agree, it's very easy to write for somebody who's like you. So if you're writing for somebody who's not like you, keep challenging and keep reviewing, you know, whether you're not putting your own perspective or your own, you know, viewpoints in that person. So keep challenging everything that person does. Because that's a real challenge to write for somebody who's not like you at all.
Well, geez, Chris, when you put it like that, that makes my film rather narrow-minded. I didn't take that into consideration.
Well, all that counts is that it works as a film. You know, I've never thought about what would a film like be where all the characters are like you.
We'll call it one-person perspective.
Elliot,
That can
The
also
more
work.
research you do, and of course, all that is there, the more observation, research, imagination at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about dialogue, yeah? Sorry, I'm just putting on the Collab Twitter that this will be on YouTube tomorrow, so that any of you missed it, like Greg, you missed a bit. I mean, he was just in full flow. And he's,
Right.
what I love about Adam, and in fact, last month, Jeff, you know, these people started from absolutely nothing. They're all self-trained.
Yeah, exactly.
And they've magicked this social enterprise, creative enterprise out of nothing. And as Adam was saying, as long as I can keep the lights on and buy a stick of bread and work with my friends, that really is as good as it gets. And every once in a while, the universe picks someone up and puts them several zeros on the end of the paycheck. But to be able to do that and communicate and be a storyteller and have something that other people respond to. I guess the same with music too. I mean, there's thousands of musicians who are so talented, never make it because they lose the passion or they just have misfortune.
I've seen it. They tried to make it a business in their head. And I've seen one co-writer I worked with for years. We had quite a lot of success. And he started treating it like a business. He became entrepreneur. And his lyric writing got worse. People didn't like him. So they get a lot of bad reports back from people because it's such a small world. So you hear things even from as far as Australia. People were contacting me and saying, "Do you know this guy?" You know. And I loved what he said when he said that. I agree with you, Elliot. That was the bit that inspired me the most because that's how I look at things. I just want to work with people I enjoy being with. And it seems like the universe provides the money that you need if you're doing it for the right reasons, you know, and paying the bills and gives you what you need.
I find at Raindance, when I worry about money, it doesn't come in. But if I get back to what my vision is, the ka-chings happen and suddenly I can pay the rent. You know, it's a really weird thing.
Every time.
Yeah.
It's also really interesting, you know, what he said about Warhol as well, because when you watch it, you'll see what he meant. But, you know, that really is a social impact film. And obviously he did it based upon a personal experience that he'd been through and as well. And I think, you know, those are, as we've spoken to so many other people at these collab sessions, you know, it's telling those stories that matter. When you do that, it sort of creates a certain energy around it and a power that then propels it, I think, out into the world, and it gets the support that it deserves, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's clearly what started him off on this journey, and that's really inspirational, but also a wonderful message to all of us. To, you know, we're all here to tell a very unique story that only we can tell. With the help of our friends, of course, as he said. But yeah, it's just really, it's really nice to hear that. And I hadn't quite, even though I'd sort of, you know, done some research, I hadn't quite got that was the place where he started. So that was really inspirational to hear that.
It really was.
And you know, that's one mistake a lot of independent filmmakers do is they focus a lot on money. How would they get the money? How would they get the producer? As you know, Elliot, you just said the right thing. When you focus on the vision, you'll get the support. The money will come. Universe will make it happen somehow. You just have to believe and keep focusing on the vision. And you don't really need money to make, you know, something which just to start a short film or just to make a small film, you don't really need money.
My story is not really about making a film, but there's the early years of Raindance, year 3, we were so broke. I was walking 2.5 miles each way to work every day. That's how broke we were. And we had our opening night film and we're selling tickets for £2. And I'd sold enough to pay the cinema, but it was in the bank. It wasn't. And as they pushed play in the projector, the cinema owner came with his hand on the light switch and said, "I'm going to have to pull this off because you haven't paid me." I said, "I can pay you." He said, "But I need the money. It's, I'll give you 15 minutes. And in that 15 minutes, a patron who I still work with walked in with the £1,500 in cash, which I handed over to the theater owner. It was that close. But yeah,
Finally work.
that's why my hair is this color, not your hair color, Swati, but it's pretty crazy. Anyway.
Where your festival is at now, Elliot. I mean, you know, how much it's growing and how successful it is.
Well, success is measured by different metrics. I mean, Adam, I realize I know Adam from Raindance, and Raindance has gone by, but success is measured by, you know, the metrics of your bank manager is a very different metric than that of people like Adam, for example. So, and you have to decide, I think, in the creative industries, if you can live on the money your bank manager needs or live on the acclaim and rapport that you have with your friends, because that can be hugely beneficial. You know, if you do something that people like, whether or not you get paid or not, I think is another thing. I'm sounding very preachy now, but that's kind of how I run my life.
That's the fun part about money. The moment you stop worrying about it, it comes.
Yeah, Elliot, don't stop. I mean, you've got my attention. I mean, please. I mean, whenever you like at Raindance, what type? I know you can't really speculate what type of material, but what would be a good Kodak and what would be a good ratio or a good set for that big screen up there to get something in the Raindance? What would be a requirement or something that would work well?
It's one word, it's story, but story, the stories we look for, the stories of whistleblowers, the stories of social impact, the stories of the downtrodden, the stories that are overlooked by everyone else. I mean, we had a film in 1996, I'd just forgotten his name, the Asian guy who directed the current James Bond. 97, we had two brothers coming in from New York. Made a wonderful film, which they couldn't sell because they'd put The Girl from Ipanema over the closing credits, one of the most expensive songs in the world, and they didn't have the music rights. And that was the Russo brothers ended up making The Avengers, and on and on and on. But the reason we chose those particular films back in the early days, Gareth Edwards was another one we had, Edgar Wright, Chris Nolan, all these people, they tell stories. And then, of course, there's misfortune, because if you told a great, I don't know, social climate change story, and we had 10 equally good, but only room for 5, we may not be able to choose yours. So it's all that stuff that goes on too. But anyway, it sounds, you say Raindance is big. To me, it's small and horribly challenging. We have to sell 6,000 tickets, or our bank manager will switch the lights off again.
Well, from where I'm sitting.
Sorry, Larry.
From where I'm sitting, it's rather big. So,
it is?
Yeah.
Where are you sitting, Larry?
In this chair.
No,
chair right here. Oh.
Which city are you in?
Oh, I'm in Dallas. I'm in Dallas,
right.
Texas. I live in Rowlett. It's spelled. If you're not from Texas, you'd say Rowlett, but if you look at the spelling, it looks like it says Rowlett.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Larry belongs in a movie with that accent of yours, Larry, or an audio book that Tremaine's going to be recording sometime soon.
Uh-oh.
It's such a great, it really is.
Well, I am going to, nice to meet you, Larry. Nice to meet you, Larry. Check out raindance.org. There's lots of stuff on there too.
Yeah, I wrote down the link here, and I'll follow it. Y'all do shorts as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're showing about 200 this year, but we had many thousands submitted.
Well, hopefully the things I work on film is better than some of the music I've made in my past. So.
Elliot, have you got any messages that you want people to put out on social? Because I know you said you've got a lot of tickets to sell. Is there anything that people can do on their social media to help?
Well, yeah, I'm going to put it in again in the chat box. Whoops. We have a website that's got all the galas, we have something called the House of Raindance, where we are doing a whole series of panel discussions. Tony, who was here earlier, and Greg are doing a discussion on music and creation and music and film, etc. All kinds of cool stuff. And that is where the next month's Collab Writers group in person is going to be. But for people like Larry in Texas, we are going to be able to do it on Zoom as well, be simulcast from the real sweaty, dirty room that is Raindance.
So Swati and Larry and anybody else who's away, and maybe Michelle, you can still catch things on Zoom. But we are coming out of hiding from Greenwich in London, and hopefully will not be masked, but maybe masked at the House of Raindance on the 4th of November.
Well, Elliot, the best I can do, there's a group down here called DFA. It's a Dallas Filmmakers Alliance, and I'm a member there, and pay dues and stuff like that. I can post Raindance information there, and they're all filmmakers. They're better than I am. So they, if they want to submit stuff and do stuff, if they haven't already, I can post the stuff there. That's about as far as I can do.
Well, Larry, because it's you, because you're in Dallas, if you would like me to come and do something like the 99-minute film school, I will do that. It would be, let me think. But it might be 3 a.m. Do you meet on the Saturday in the afternoon or anything like that?
Yeah, they have an open forum there on DFA here. The gentleman who runs it, it's a nonprofit organization, and they've been running it, and I signed up with them. They have a producing or directing classes coming up that I'm taking. Long story short, I can link you up with them, Elliot. Trust me, they would love to have someone yes, I'm sure that they would open the door, and at least there'd be a communication going on there.
Well, we can do it from Zoom depending on the time zone. But if you meet in the evening, that would be difficult because it would be really late. But if it's in the afternoon on a weekend or something, I could do. I've just put my email, Larry, in the chat box. So
that would be great. Yeah, there's 2 guys in particular. One of them runs it more than the other. The other guy just hosts the forum like this.
Right.
And I'll hook you up with them because that's their gig. It's them. They are DFA, and that would be open. And I guarantee you they'd love to hear from you. Yeah. I guarantee it. I'd be shocked if they didn't.
And Randall, who was here earlier, is in Toronto, so that's more the same time zone. So that can make it easier. I'm sure he'd do something as well. Anyway.
Is it okay if I give the head guy there your email? And that way, because he's the one that you really want to work
It's more than okay, but thank you.
Okay.
I expect you to do that.
Okay. I'm just a secretary here. That's all.
Okay. All right. All creatives need good, solid administration. So that's a valuable role.
I think it's the 23rd, August 23rd is when that class starts for me. It's like it goes over a couple of weeks. It's like every Saturday for 3 days. And the guy who's giving it is one of the founders of DFA, but I'll get in touch with him before then. I have his email. So
cool. Okay. And if any of you are not members of Raindance, why don't you ping me an email? I'll make a deal you can't refuse. So that's Swati's a member, I think. Yes. Yeah. And Greg's a member, I think. I don't know anyone else. I think Wilena is maybe Tremaine. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks. I think Jennie's done a fabulous job yet again.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jennie.
Thank you, Jennie.
Everybody for joining. And yeah, wow, I'm kind of I'm slightly in awe tonight. I was really sort of I mean, every single event is lovely, but there's something very special about Adam, I think. That was really lovely. And I very much look forward to seeing everyone next time. Some of you in person. Maybe we'll even get to sort of elbow bump. And then Swati, I hope you will be here at some point soon. I hope.
Yeah, Jennie, hope so. And yeah, all the best for next collab. And Elliot, all the best for Raindance. The lineup looks amazing. Hope the festival goes really well.
Yeah, it does look really good. Can't wait.
I didn't know that you could be a member of Rain Dance. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, Larry.
Yeah, but see, sometimes I can't even remember my own phone number. So
I would drop Elliot an email, and like he said, he'll do you a deal you can't refuse. So I would definitely, as well as giving it to the seniors at the Dallas Filmmaking Forum or whatever it was called, I would be sending Elliot an email yourself as well.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys. I'm gonna head out. I got a yard to mow.
Larry.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
My battery's about to die. I'm gonna go. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Jenny. Great as always.
You're welcome, Chris. Good to see you.
Thank you. Till next time.
Till next time. Oh. Swati.
I was waiting for you. Who else do we have? I can't hear you. You've gone on mute or what? By the way, Jenny, it's still getting recorded. So if you want to switch off the record button.